I wrote a speech last night. It is titled, very simply, Culling the Poor. Modern eugenics and the rich elite's plan to torch our social contract. The owning class has a vision for the future, and you are not in it. I've seen many sides of American life, from attending private school with the sons and daughters of millionaires and rich real estate moguls to filing for food stamps shortly after my 18th birthday. I've seen the charmed lives of our nation's wealthy, and I have witnessed firsthand how our country treats factory laborers and migrant farm workers. Many of our nation's elite see Americans as lazy. I know that is not true. In America, people work themselves to death. When I took a Greyhound bus through West Virginia, I spoke to an older man in his 70s. He had had a difficult life. He shared with me his experience of losing the love of his life 10 years ago, and how he was finding joy in his life after that. I told him about my work in a CNC mill, about walking 15 minutes in the dark, 5:30 in the morning, to get to my job that I worked from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. I told him about the physical labor that I did, about my time operating a forklift, operating the centrifuge, washing the parts output of an entire factory. I told him I was proud of my work, and he said he was too. His face lit up, and he took a lot of interest. People love to hear stories of hard work, even when it injures someone. I think it's because we spend so much time hearing about the poor work ethic of younger people. No one wants to work anymore. Yeah, right. Part of our social contract is you work yourself as hard as you can for as long as you can, and in exchange, when you get old or disabled, you are taken care of. This was the agreement we came to between workers and the owning class. This was the compromise we settled for as people trying to make a fairer society. It was the idea behind Social Security. Hundreds of millions of Americans have put up with bullshit pay and unfair working conditions because of this shared understanding. Millions have gotten injured, many of them children, because of unsafe job sites. We understand welfare exists to keep us alive. It has never kept us comfortable or given us a real dignified existence. Now we have arrived at the greatest rug pull in all of labor history. For decades, the wealthy and their pundits have called us a burden. They have called basic social safety net programs entitlements. These pundits, on talk radio, TV, and online, have convinced people that disabled Americans are the cause of our shrinking quality of life, that we are the source of our national debt while the rich cut their taxes. They give you all the pieces to draw this conclusion without saying it outright. We need to kill the poor. Many of us will be poor at one point or another in our lives, but the rich know that they will not. Whether the rich understand it or not, they have made a society with millions of disabled people and a healthcare system which focuses on extracting money from sick people instead of healing them. Their every action robs us of our money, time, or our lives. Now, it has come time for them to implement their greatest plan, culling the poor to lower their taxes, gutting all remaining regulations, and casting us into a new Gilded Age. Eugenics is the idea that if you simply allow the poor to suffer enough, the weak will die, and the next generation will be better suited. Better suited to labor under worse conditions, better suited to accepting less pay, less indolent. They want to own, poison, maim, and destroy you with absolute impunity. Hell no. I am not going to accept this, and the American people must be informed of it. If this is allowed to come to pass, not only will millions of us lose our lives, but we will collectively be robbed of our futures. There will not be a future for free people in any country on earth. Detractors will call me every name in the book. They will call me a socialist. They will say that I want the weak to triumph under the strong, that I want the weak to triumph over the strong, or that I believe in taking the products of somebody else's labor. I do not. I believe that labor is sacred. I believe in the dignity of work, and I believe that all people should be entitled to the profits of their labor, and I believe that labor as a whole should be entitled to all which it produces. Part of this continuing resolution is $880 billion in cuts to Medicaid, but part of it is also stripping the coverage of hormone replacement therapy for transgender people from Medicaid. Medicaid is something that many disabled people and poor people rely on in this country. Whether it's $800 billion, $600 billion, or $300 billion in cuts to Medicaid, this looks like elderly people evicted from nursing homes and dying on the street. It will be a mass die-off of the poor, the elderly, the sick, and the needy. Our ruling class is not ignorant to the fact that this will kill millions of Americans. They are counting on it because they see us as a burden instead of what we are, the products of a society which strips us of the ability to be independent for ourselves, a society which robs working everyday people of the profits of their labor at every step in the process from cradle to grave. You do not get to change the terms of this deal after the fact. You do not get to say that part of this social contract is that we work ourselves into the grave and then kill us when we're old. That is not what we signed up for. And you do not get to change the terms of the social contract and expect the poor to still abide by it. I struggle to walk for 2 reasons. Because I have a genetic disorder that affects my connective tissue and makes my joints more susceptible to damage, and because I worked for 10 hours a day at a factory job for the better part of a year, doing the work of 2 grown men while I was still a teenager and my body was still growing. I will live with the consequences of working under those conditions for $13.50 an hour for the rest of my life, and the social safety net exists to help people like me. Because people like me are the cost of your cheap consumer goods. People like me are the cost of making brass fittings and parts for guns and parts for pressure washers at pennies on the dollar. Every single week, I would wash easily $15,000 worth of parts. Every month, at least $50,000 to $70,000 worth of orders would pass through that factory. And every month, I took home $1,200. Something that many do not understand about connective tissue disorders is that they cause disorders of sexual development. Many connective tissue disorders are comorbid with things like gender dysphoria, things like androgen insensitivity. My family produces many trans people because we have this genetic disorder in our blood. You do not get to eliminate my genotype. The social safety net includes everybody, and estrogen is one of the cheapest medications and the most abundant medication that the world has ever produced. A year's supply is $100. It is cheaper than aspirin. It is cheaper than antihistamines. And you do not get to strip access to hormone replacement therapy for one segment of the population. Because trans people are not the only people that use HRT. A trans person who is post-operative does not produce their own hormones anymore. That means that they need external hormones or they will die a slow, painful death over several years from osteoporosis and other comorbid health conditions. You do not get to force those people to live their life a different way, because it's the same cost either way. For a 40-year-old trans man, he needs to take testosterone for the rest of his life. For a 35-year-old trans woman who doesn't have reproductive organs, she needs to take estrogen for the rest of her life. And both of those medications cost the same to taxpayers, cost the same to the government, are the same medications that menopausal cis women use when they are trying to deal with the effects of menopause, when they are trying to deal with hot flashes, when somebody needs to strengthen their bones for the sake of an operation or because they were injured. They're prescribed testosterone. This is something that is prescribed to women and men alike. Everybody gets to use hormones, except for trans people, because they do not want trans people to exist. And trans people are not the way they are because they make a decision to live their life in that way. Transgender people are often the way they are for genetic reasons. I'm not going to give you the specific research papers because this is a society that is currently led by people who want to practice eugenics. When you see Robert F. Kennedy Jr. try to make a disease registry to place autistic people and other people with learning disabilities on it, that tells you everything that the government wants to do. They see people that are different, they see people that are disabled as a burden, and they want as many of them to die as possible so that the rest of society doesn't have to deal with them. You do not get to eliminate my genotype. Try and get rid of my genotype and see what happens. Because whether you like it or not, hormone replacement therapy is one of the most abundant and plentiful and inexpensive medications ever made in the history of the world. And no matter what you do to restrict access to it, people will still make sure that the people who need their medicine are able to get it. And if you try to interfere with that process, I would like you to see what happens. Yes, I have a fire in me. And no, I do not give a damn if somebody calls me crazy. Because I care about the people that I love. And I am not going to let somebody hurt or kill the people that I love, whether it is by neglect or at the barrel of a gun. The rich are pitting the heterosexual against the homosexual, against the transsexual, because it is plainly part of their strategy to divide and conquer. They are trying to get the average person in this country to hate transgender people because they want to rob every person in this country. And they do not care what the consequences of it are. If it leads us into fascism, if it leads to a second Holocaust, the rich people controlling this society do not care, because all they care about is growing their own power, wealth, and influence. We are running out of time. We are running out of time to stop this. And if we do not, history will remember our cowardice, and our children will hate us for our inaction. This is greater than politics. This isn't about the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. This is about systems controlled by the owning class being used to kill members of the laboring class. I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. I'll put out more videos later. Take care.